Kia ora guys, Michelle here. In this video I want to talk to you about how a beginner thru hiker can choose an insulated jacket for the trail. Okay, so there is a lot of information out there about insulated jackets that are designed for outdoor activities, specifically for hiking, and it can be very overwhelming. Certainly I was overwhelmed when I first started looking. But there are some really good tips that you can follow when you're choosing an insulated jacket, which I'm going to give to you in this video, and it's going to help you just to try and sift through all of that information and make the best decision for you. Okay, so when you're choosing an insulated jacket, there are really three factors that you want to take into account. The first is warmth, the second is weight, and the third is packability. Now, if you've been looking at insulated jackets, you're probably already aware that there are two main types of insulation available on the market. You've got your standard down, which has been used for many years, and making a bit of a resurgence at the moment is synthetic fill. Now, down meets all of the three main criteria very well. The warmth to weight ratio of down is incredibly high, which means that you are basically guaranteed to get a high level of warmth for a very low weight. On the other side of things, synthetic materials and synthetic insulations tend to either be a little less warm than down or quite a bit heavier than down for the same amount of warmth that they provide. On the very last criteria, the packability side of things, down is incredibly compressible due to the way that the fibres and the puff in each of the little down clumps are able to condense right the way down. So it makes it a very packable option, as opposed to, again, a synthetic fill where sometimes you might be a little bit restricted with how much the synthetic material can actually go down into a clump or a ball or whatever you're packing it down into. So for all of these reasons, I actually decided to go with a down jacket instead of a synthetic jacket, and I'll go into some of the main reasons why I made that decision in a little while. But there are a lot of synthetic jacket options on the market at the moment. Some of the brands that are making some really good jackets include Arc'teryx, Patagonia, the North Face, and also Rab. So in this video I'm going to compare 4 different ultralight insulated jackets. 3 of them are down, and the very last one is what I consider to be one of the best insulated synthetic jackets on the market at the moment. And then I'm going to let you know which one that I chose. So the very first jacket I'm going to talk to you about is the one that seems to be incredibly popular with many hikers overseas, and that is the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer hooded jacket. It comes in both a men's and a women's version, and the insulation is 90-10 goose down, which has been hydrophobically treated. That means that the down has been treated with, I think, Mountain Hardwear's Q-Shield protection, which makes it perform slightly better when it's wet and stop it from clumping. Making sure that the down in your down jacket is treated from clumping is very important, because if down starts to clump together, it immediately starts to lose its insulating properties. This is because it ends up causing large pockets of air in your jacket and spaces that the down isn't actually insulating, and that just allows cold air to get in and through the jacket and obviously cool you down. So the more that your down has been treated to specifically prevent clumping, the warmer it's generally going to keep you. All of the jackets that I'm going to talk about in this video have been treated with some sort of anti-clumping or waterproofing mechanism. So the goose down in the Ghost Whisperer jacket is 800 loft. Now, it can be very confusing checking when you're first looking at down jackets to see that one jacket, for example, has an 800 loft and another jacket might have a 650 loft, and your question is going to be, well, how do I know which one is the warmer jacket? So the very simple answer is that there's no real way to know which jacket is warmer than the other, but I can tell you the difference between the different lofts to give you a better idea of how you can make a good decision. So with down loft, basically the idea is that the lower the number, the less lofty the down is. So if it's a 650 loft down, it's going to be less lofty than an 800 loft down. Now, what's all this to do with loft? What does that actually mean in terms of you using the jacket? Well, loft relates to how much space the actual clump of down takes up. So a 650 loft down, let's say 100 gram sample of that particular down might only take up this much on in a test tube, which is generally the tester that they use, whereas an 850 loft down might take up an additional half of that space again. So the more lofty the down is, the warmer generally that it will be. And that is because the little fibres on the down are able to spread out and loft up a lot better, which creates more air pockets, which means that the air can be warmed by your body heat and therefore keep you warmer. But just because you are picking, say, an 800 or even a 900 loft jacket doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be warmer than if you had a 650 or a 700 loft jacket. And that's because you also have to take into account the gram or the ounce fill of the down in that jacket. So generally garment companies will fill their jackets depending on what activity they are designing that jacket for. So obviously if you've got a jacket that is a 650 loft down and you've got 250 grams of that down fill in it, it's most likely going to be warmer than if you've got an 800 loft down that's only got 90 odd grams of fill. It's sort of just basic physics. But of course the reason why a lot of people are going for higher loft down when they are doing activities like hiking or through hiking is because they want that ultralight feel but still to get the warmth. So the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer really ticks all of those boxes. It's an 800 loft down which is filled with around about 70 grams of down for a medium size, which brings the total weight of the jacket to 220 grams. Now you might be asking, well, what does total weight mean? So obviously you're not just looking at the weight of the down, you've also got to take into account things like the weight of the outer fabric, the zips, hoods and things like that as well. So the total weight is the total weight of the jacket, and the down fill weight is just the amount of down that's actually been pumped into the jacket. So on the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer, the outer shell is made from a 7D/10D ripstop nylon, which has actually been coated. I should also mention that whereas I was originally looking at just the base model of the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer hooded jacket, there is also now a Ghost Whisperer 2 jacket, which is made from recycled and sustainable materials. I certainly like to try and buy sustainable and recycled as much as possible, and I definitely will never ever buy down unless it is RDS certified down. That means that the down has been sourced ethically from animals as far as possible. The ethical sourcing of down is becoming a huge issue just due to the sheer numbers of down products that are on the market these days, so it's really important if you can to get that RDS certified down. Now the second jacket that I want to talk to you about is the Rab Microlight Alpine. Rab makes some really excellent outdoor gear. It's a Scottish based company, so I guess that means that you can trust their gear has been tested in the harshest of conditions, and also it's quite readily available here in New Zealand, which is a big benefit to me. The Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer jacket can be quite hard to source and get shipped to New Zealand. Now the Rab Microlight Alpine jacket is also a goose down jacket which is RDS certified, and it has been treated to give it that hydrophobic performance we spoke about earlier. Now the down is a 750 loft down, so slightly less than the Ghost Whisperer, but the down weight is quite a bit more at 135 grams. However, the entire weight of the Microlight Alpine goes to about 430 grams, and this is all for a women's size 12 measurement. So you can see that it is almost double the weight of the Ghost Whisperer jacket. Now for that reason alone, I did not end up deciding to go with the Microlight Alpine jacket, but that doesn't mean that it is a bad jacket. Obviously the fact that it has that 135 grams of downfill means that it is probably going to be quite a bit warmer than the Ghost Whisperer or some of the other jackets that I'm going to talk about in this video. The exterior fabric on the Microlight Alpine is Pertex Quantum, which is a very ultralight, very durable nylon fabric which is treated for weather resistancy. And again, if possible, if you know that you're going to be in the outdoors with a down jacket, you want to make sure that your weather redundancies are as high as possible. So from a personal perspective, I don't buy a down jacket unless I know that A, the down is treated, but also B, that the shell has been treated with some sort of water repellency, either by a specific fabric like Pertex Quantum or by a general durable water repellent treatment or DWR. I would suggest that the Microlight Alpine is probably going to be a really good jacket for somebody who wants to be out in the outdoors on a 3-season basis and not maybe just in the summer or in those very mild shoulder seasons. Now because of the different features and mainly the different weight of the jacket, i.e. there is more downfill in it, the Microlight Alpine actually comes in at 399-ish New Zealand dollars if you were to buy it off the shelf through a shop here, and that is in comparison to the roughly 325 New Zealand dollars that the Ghost Whisperer jacket would cost. You might even be able to find that slightly cheaper in an online store as long as you can get it shipped to New Zealand. Now the third down jacket that I want to talk to you about is by a New Zealand specific brand, which is Macpac, and it is their Icefall hooded jacket. Now the Icefall is actually quite a unique type of insulated jacket because it is made from a combination fill. Now the majority of the jacket is actually filled with 90-10 goose down, but there are a few areas where Macpac has specifically decided to use a secondary form of insulation, namely the Primaloft Gold insulation, to keep the jacket performing better if it were to get wet, and that is in the cuffs, the shoulders, and also in the chin. So the jacket has a very high chin, but obviously if you're breathing into a jacket that's got a high chin, you're creating a lot of condensation in that area, which over time can actually cause the down to become wet and it may even start to clump. So Macpac have identified that. They also say that the Icefall is designed specifically with climbers in mind, hence why they have put that Primaloft fill in the cuffs and also in the shoulders, because if you're climbing, those are the areas where if you've got water falling from above off of a rock face, it's more likely going to hit those areas than other areas. So again, the down is treated and it is RDS certified. The actual down fill in the jacket for a size 10 is 80 odd grams, and that takes the total weight of that jacket to 280. The outer shell is made from Pertex Quantum fabric, which again is DWR treated, and if you're a Macpac Club member, which it's very easy to sign up for, you can actually get that jacket for 349 New Zealand dollars, which brings it in somewhere between the Ghost Whisperer and the Microlight Alpine. Now the last jacket that I want to talk to you about is the Patagonia Micro Puff hoodie. Now as I mentioned, this is a synthetic jacket and it's made with a specific type of synthetic insulation that Patagonia have developed called Plumafill. The Plumafill insulation is designed to mimic the properties of down in the way that it is sewn and stitched together, and Patagonia have even incorporated a specific stitching design into their jacket to stop the synthetic insulation from bunching together. Now this is a problem that a lot of synthetic jackets can suffer from, and it's definitely something that you want to do a bit of research on if you are considering purchasing a synthetic jacket, is whether or not that insulation is going to bunch up and therefore create areas where cold, wind or whatever can get through. So the biggest advantage of a synthetic jacket is basically its weatherproofing. The idea is that a synthetic jacket will still perform and keep you warm even if it's wet, and then it will also be able to dry out very quickly if it does get wet. I'd still say though that if you're relying on a synthetic jacket like that to keep you warm when you're out in the middle of nowhere, that you want to be going with the absolute best synthetic jacket that you can buy, the highest warmth to weight ratio that you can get. Now the weight of the Micro Puff hoodie is pretty comparable to what you can find with the Ghost Whisperer. So it is filled with 65 grams of that Plumafill insulation, which takes the total weight of the jacket to 227. Now whether or not the Micro Puff hoodie would keep you as warm as the Ghost Whisperer jacket does, I couldn't comment on, but the idea is that it should keep you warm even in those adverse weather conditions. It did take a little while for me to decide whether I wanted a down jacket or a synthetic jacket specifically for the New Zealand conditions. We get subjected to some pretty bad rainfall even in our shoulder seasons like spring and summer, so if you are only hiking in the summer season, you'd probably be okay with a down jacket that you can use just in those dry summer months. But if you're wanting to do more 3 or even 4 season hiking or outdoor activities, then whether it's going to be able to keep you warm if it gets wet starts to become a little bit more of a problem. Now it seems to be the general consensus that not a lot of people actually hike in their down jackets, and certainly in the summertime I wouldn't be hiking in a down jacket, but in the shoulder seasons, like I said, autumn, maybe even the very start of spring, when we can get some really cold temperatures and some very wet weather coming through the country, sometimes I do want to hike in my down jacket just to keep that extra little layer of warmth. I decided that it was worthwhile me making the compromise with just throwing a rain layer over the top of my jacket if I want to hike in it while it's raining, and so far that's worked really well for me. The outer material of the Micro Puff hoodie is Pertex Quantum again, so that nice ultralight nylon fabric, but this jacket is by far and away the most expensive of all of the options that I've discussed here today. In New Zealand you're looking at about $459 to get it here, although it is definitely possible to find it for much cheaper overseas as long as you can get it shipped here. So the jacket that I ended up going with is the Macpac Icefall. Now I got a level with you guys here and bit of a disclaimer. So about 4 or 5 months ago I actually decided to take on a part-time position at my local Macpac store. Now that didn't feature too heavily in my decision of which jacket to buy, but since I've been working there and finding out a lot more about the Macpac products, I have to say that regardless I probably still would have gone with this jacket anyway. Now it's certainly not the lightest of the options that I've given you. In fact, it's actually more likely the 3rd lightest out of the options that I've given you, although my size 8 jacket actually weighs in at 260 grams instead of the 280 I quoted earlier. Just while we're on that subject, you want to be a little bit careful when you're deciding on a jacket if you are specifically basing it on the weight of the jacket. Obviously different sizes weigh different amounts, so if you really are coming down to a few grams for every single jacket and you want to just get the lightest version, get in touch with the manufacturer directly and find out exactly how much your specific size weighs. The Icefall jacket is also not the cheapest of the jackets. Again, that rests with the Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer, but it does come in second, so I think that was a pretty good compromise. But I think the main thing for me that just made me feel really good about buying this jacket is that it is designed in New Zealand by a New Zealand company. So Macpac have been around since ages ago, I think like the 70s, and they have been making gear specifically designed for the New Zealand outdoors since then. And as I mentioned earlier, the New Zealand outdoors is really very different to a lot of places elsewhere in the world, especially the United States. So I want to make sure that the gear that I buy is going to stand up to those conditions, and that is exactly what I'm hoping my Icefall will do. And just so that you can get an idea of the jacket once it's on as well, so you can see my sleeves come right the way down and basically cover my entire hand, which is actually really awesome. It comes down to a good length on my torso as well, so it just covers the top of my bum, which is really nice. And then this is that high chin that I was talking to you about, so basically I can hike along like this and try and keep my face as warm as possible, and this area down here is where that Primaloft Gold synthetic insulation sits as well, so actually really happy, and it keeps me nice and warm. Okay guys, so that concludes this video on my tips for how to choose an insulated jacket. I hope that I've made some good suggestions and that I've given you a good idea of what to look for and what not to look for in an insulated jacket. If you've got any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments down below, and why not hit that little bell notification button while you're down there too. so you can be notified of new videos when I upload them. If you haven't already liked me on Facebook and followed me on Instagram, why not go and do that? And while you're on Facebook, go and check out the Long White Gypsy hiking / tramping community. This is in substitution for the meetup group that I recently set up, and I thought it might be a better place to have a bit of a forum for people at the beginner and amateur level like me who just want to share ideas, ask questions, and form groups to go out hiking together in and around their communities. It's not designed to be specific to location, so I'd really love it if we could get some people together all over New Zealand to start getting out there and hiking together. Alright guys, that's it for this video. I will see you